One of the great pleasures of this kind of travel is that you never know where you're going to end up in the evening. And you drive all day and you drive all day and you explore and you explore and you take pictures and you tell stories and you never know where you're going to end up. And then you get this amazing sunset. The shadow of the earth over its own atmosphere is that dark line you see above the horizon. The sun gone down, the ancient peaks and this ancient landscape. It's just something else, and it's what draws me to this again and again and again. At moments like this, the unexpected proves to be spectacular in every respect.
Through the fields of our past, feelings part our ways, keeping us close but estranged now. Dreams holding us closer, meadows of our youth, 107 days, but recalling it backwards. Our dreams holding us closer. Ooh, we can see so clear. Ooh, we can see
Driving across a continent twice turned out to be one of the most arduous yet most fulfilling expeditions I've ever undertaken. During the 7 weeks, I revelled in Australia's vastness, saw the matchless diversity of its coastline, and met one of its heroes.
Do you mind if I rip this off?
Rip it off. And a million of its insects. Hi!
It's disgusting.
I was both thrilled and tortured by its tracks, tested some new tyres, and was even paraded before the press. Nothing. And even though my plans were changed en route, I succeeded in my quest to drive from Australia's eastern to most western points.
Far away.
This is my story, and my daughter, Kate's, too. 8 o'clock, Saturday morning, ready to go. I had a message on one of my YouTube channels from a fan saying, please will you document the first 15 minutes of your trip out of Perth. My first reaction was, why on earth would you want me to do that? And my second reaction to that was, nah. But I will document the first 15 seconds. So let us begin at the beginning. On a not so ordinary Saturday morning from my home north of Perth, Western Australia, I head off, but first a brief visit to make to my local camera store before I get on my way. One last piece of camera equipment that I want to get before I head off on my trip. And I come to a place called Leederville Camera House. I do adventure travel films. A few years ago, I changed brands, and this is my final piece of equipment, a Sony 100 to 400mm lens. Well, these guys did me a big favor last week. It's called customer relations. So I thought I'll do them a big favor. So, good guys. A competitive pricing, and they know how to keep photographers happy. Got 11,000 kilometers to go, and it all starts now. The light four-wheel drive truck that I'm driving is a Toyota Landcruiser 78 series, sometimes called the Troopy or Troop Carrier. It's sold in some parts of Asia, Africa and Australia. It's a favourite amongst NGOs, being very basic, very robust, practical and simple to maintain. But most of all for me is that it is strong and dependable in very rough conditions, and that it's mine. I converted it to a camper last year before I drove one of the world's longest tracks, the 1,600 kilometres of the Canning Stock Route in Australia. But more about the truck later. On we go. Tomorrow is a big day for me because I'm going to be driving on a road that I heard about when I was a little boy. My mother is Australian, and she would tell me about a place called the Nullarbor. And I would ask her, well, what's at the Nullarbor? And she said, there's nothing. There's nothing for miles, for day after day after day. It's this enormous area of nothing, and something in me that appealed to me, that there was nothingness. And was the very first Australian word that I learned, Nullarbor. It means treeless. It's a treeless plain of immense proportions. Today's drive has been fantastic. The last few hours have been magnificent. The sun is setting, and these trees, these amazing red trunked gum trees, are lining the road. I'm chasing the sun now. I want to stop at a place called Dundas Nature Reserve. I don't know that there's camping, but often these parks, there are no facilities, but there are beautiful camp spots where you can just pull off the road. What's very common in Australia is to literally just pull off on the side of the road and camp next to the trees, because so many people do this kind of traveling where they will do really long distance and be totally self-sufficient. They won't need a campsite, so they will drive like I'm doing until it starts getting dark, and then they will look for a place to pull over in the trees.
And you are shades of grey, living day to day. Even when we're free, it's true. Differences are same.
A long train, but nothing, I have to say, nothing compared to the length of the trains that I've seen in the US. Night driving long distance is not something I particularly enjoy. I tried, but failed to reach a small game reserve where I knew there would be camping. So instead, I just pulled over and found a spot in the bush. I wake this morning in rather dreary surroundings. Last night, I arrived at the little game reserve far too late. It was pitch black, and had to use my new spotlights, which didn't work very well because they weren't set properly. I hadn't done that, it's a very ordinary campsite, but I was left alone, and what I was looking for, a place off the road, and I managed to achieve that. And driving in here and carefully parking the vehicle, there was an almighty thwack underneath the vehicle, which turned out to be that log under there. You put a wheel over one part of the log, you've probably done it, and the other part of the log, which looks like it's glued to the ground, goes boomf, and hits the underside of the vehicle. Anyway, this morning it's a quickish breakfast. Last night, didn't film it. There's a sign that says Adelaide 1,926 kilometres, and that sign is just over there. My expedition will take me across the continent of Australia. Twice. Right now, I'm here. Tonight, I'll be on the coast somewhere here. And then it's on to Adelaide to meet a group of fans. Then Melbourne to spend some time with fans and family. Then to the Victoria Highlands. I'm going to be there to take part in the press launch of a new tyre. Then on to Brisbane to meet the fans and reach the easternmost point. Then onto the centre, the red centre. In fact, Lambert's centre, the geographical central point of this massive piece of real estate. From then to the westmost point of this land. I'm getting exhausted just saying it. Long drive today. Breakfast. Oh, I have something to say about Australian breakfast cereals. The subject of breakfast cereal is something very close to my heart because as a little boy, I loved breakfast cereal. As a big boy, I loved breakfast cereal. Well, I loved breakfast cereal. really, because, well, here in Australia I find the breakfast cereals very disappointing in that they're all like this, or they're muesli, which are completely tasteless and 999% oats because it's cheap, or it looks like sweepings from the cereal factory floor. They mix every cereal known to man and they put it in one box, and it's very popular here because you can get several different brands. This one here is one of the better ones, and it's really very ordinary. Of all the things I miss in England, it's the breakfast cereal. This here would be typical of an alternative to where I stayed last night. These designated stopping points, every couple of 100 kilometers there's one. Some have facilities, well here, facilities, toilets, that's about it, and places where you can get rid of your rubbish. So the penalty, of course, is noise, but they're located like this one in some rather nice places. And some of them are very large, like this one in fact. People are actually camped way off into the bush there, so they're actually a good alternative. The other advantage of stopping here, as opposed to just in the middle of the bush anywhere, is that you have safety in numbers. So, you know, people will, if there's an issue, you can go to a camper that's camped nearby and ask for help. And if you need a cup of sugar, then you'll also probably do well. Actually, I regret not staying here because I actually could have driven along the edge of the salt pan and camped way into the... but it was night time and it was pitch dark. So the camping spot I had was perfectly adequate. I found 3 loose wheel nuts. Not very loose, but not tight enough. Bit of advice. We all know when you fit wheels, after a while, check them. Especially if you have painted steel rims, because you have paint between the flange and the wheel, and that paint gets rubbed off, and after a period of time your wheel nuts could be very loose, could actually come off. So particularly with steel painted rims, you have to check them more often than you do with other rims. This is Australia's longest straight road, 146 kilometres. It is, as far as I can tell, not the world's longest piece of road, but perhaps the world's 3rd longest dead straight piece of road. Let's go. The sensation of driving this extremely long and seemingly endless straight bit of road is actually not what you would expect, because it's like being at sea. If you could see all of the ocean, it would be absolutely intimidating, because you would see nothing but ocean forever, but you can only see it to the height of a fairly large ship. You can only see about 6 kilometers at sea. Here it's less than that. I can probably see behind me at most 2 kilometers behind me, 3 kilometers, and the same ahead, because the road is absolutely flat. Yes, I'm not moving the steering wheel much, but it doesn't make it any less interesting just because there are no curves in the road, and you don't get the impression that, you know, there's nothing intimidating about the fact that it is just very, very long and very, very straight. It's like any other drive. There are just no curves. So that's the longest piece of straight road in Australia, and immediately after that there was a sign saying Central Western Time Zone, advance clocks by 45 minutes. This is a very strange thing about Australia. Northern Territory, they're half an hour out. Here they've asked for not 1 hour, but 1 hour 45 minutes. Why not 2 hours? Why the minutes? I don't understand it. It seems very peculiar because the whole world is based on hour zones, not 45 minutes. Anyway, it's 12 o'clock, so in effect it's now 1:45. There you go. That's the kind of really vital, important thing one tends to think about on a road like this. Refueling after using a little under 1.5 tanks. 191 a litre here. So the further you get away from the big towns and cities, the more expensive fuel is. In Perth I filled up at about 142. So 191 is quite a bit more. As I get closer and closer to the Nullarbor itself, the trees are becoming quite grotesque in the way that the prevailing wind has changed their shape. They're all kind of leaning northwards from the southerly wind that blows off the coast. At this moment, I'm probably less than 5 kilometers from the sea itself, and you can see all of the trees here. Everything is bending, and it creates a kind of weird look to the landscape. So again, tonight I find myself chasing the sun. I want to find a nice campsite in the Nullarbor, but I'm on the edge of the Nullarbor, but I'm not in it yet, and I was hoping actually to spend the night in the Nullarbor itself, the heart of it. I've probably got an hour and a half of sunlight. Yeah, hour and a half, maybe even a little less sunlight left. So I'm going to keep pushing on to try and find a campsite that's a bit special. Well, this is the Great Australian Bight Marine Park, and I can see some other people camping there, but I can see some roads in the distance. I'm going to go and see if I can find a camping spot, because you know what would be a great alternative? Actually camping right on the coast. So how about that? God, I love Australia. Look at this place. Ah, this is very nice. Ah, gorgeous. Wow, isn't that beautiful? There are a few other people here, but I'm just going to move the car around, face it into wind. It's one of the penalties of camping near the sea will be wind. Traveling alone, I absolutely love the days. Absolutely love it. And it's an unusual feeling to be responsible only for yourself, particularly when traveling in areas where the phone won't even ring because you're out of phone contact. However, at night I do struggle with some loneliness, and it becomes more acute the longer I'm away from home. But at the same time, while I do suffer from loneliness when I'm at night on my own, I avoid other people completely. I don't want to be with other people at all. It's strange, but it's the way I feel. From this point I have 2 days to get to Adelaide, where I'm meeting with a bunch of my Patreon fans, and then on to Melbourne. So I basically from this point have 2 full days. I could actually do it in one day at a long stretch, so I think I've timed it about right. So tomorrow morning I can enjoy the Nullarbor, spend a bit of time, and revisit the Great Australian Bight which actually is right on the edge of the Nullarbor Plain. The Nullarbor Plain literally just runs to the sea. Amazing. So beautiful. I feel quite lucky because, I mean, to be able to camp right next to the coast, on this coast, with not much wind, very, very lucky. I have a lot of kit in my vehicle that has been given to me, just gifts, fans, when I go to various expos. Apart from all the Coke people give me, that joke is an ongoing fiasco. Thanks. I thought about it because the scarf here was given to me by Mark Holly, who is the chap that organised the Lexus 470 last year near Portland, Oregon. So I just, and thought, thanks Mark, appreciate it. What else have I got? Probably 10 items in total, scattered throughout the vehicle. Right, supper. I have my lovely wife to thank for that. Little Gwynnie made me some frozen meals because I'm not a very good cook. So I'm going to make a chicken curry. Well, this morning woke up to no wind at all, flew, heading further east. Nothing much more to say. What a beautiful morning. I was saying last night as I pulled into the campsite, boy, I love Australia. And I do, but what I was really referring to is the fact that there's so much space. Long distance traveling, you can drive for a whole day and just arrive in an area with no particular agenda in mind, just to drive and get there and find these beautiful spots where it is absolutely safe to set up a camp somewhere and in the stunning place. That's a rarity, I think, in the world. I'm sure there are many other countries with a similar thing, but it's in itself fantastic. If you want to follow me and my truck builds, my expeditions on a weekly, if not daily basis, follow me on Instagram. The link is below. And remember to hit that subscribe button.